All right, so let's get right into it. There's this video that's been blowing up online lately, and it puts forward a pretty wild theory about the world we live in. The main idea that what we think of as reality has been, systematically replaced. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack that central argument and walk through what the source calls a multi-layered simulation.
And it kicks things off with this really bold claim. The source is saying this isn't some metaphor, it's not a figure of speech. They're arguing that this is a literal description of a system that's been built up all around us, one interlocking layer at a time. And the video claims that these layers, they just stack on top of each other, right? They create this really complex structure that ends up shaping, well, pretty much everything, from how we see ourselves to our entire political landscape. So let's start peeling back these layers and see what's inside.
Okay, so Section 1. This first layer, you've got to see it as the foundation for the whole thing. Everything else is built on top of this one idea. And the idea is that our direct, real-life experience of the world, it's been swapped out for something completely different, a symbolic layer. So what does that actually mean? Well, think about it like this. We used to understand the world based on things we actually live through, right? Our own experiences. But according to this theory, that's not how it works anymore. Now we mostly experience things through coverage. The headlines, the political labels, the hot takes that are already packaged for us. So the argument is, we're not actually living in reality anymore. We're living in symbols about it.
And here's a perfect example of how this works, according to the source. Take the word brand. We think of logos and marketing, but its original meaning, it comes from burning a mark into livestock. Why? To sort them and show who owned them. The theory argues that modern branding, from advertisers, from political narratives, does the exact same thing to us. It brands us, making us predictable and super easy to sort into different groups.
Okay, moving on to the next part. So if that mediated fake reality is the new environment we're all in, then this next piece is the machinery that trains us how to live in it. The source has a name for it, the conditioning machine. So how does this training actually happen? This is the key. It's not about force. It's way more subtle. The source calls them conditioning signals. And you know what these are. It's likes, it's shares, it's getting seen, it's getting that little hit of approval. The system basically rewards certain behaviors, which makes us repeat them. And it punishes other behaviors just by ignoring them, so they kind of fade away. It's just one giant algorithm-driven feedback loop. And apparently, this whole process has a really deep psychological effect on us. Because in order to get those rewards, we're pushed to simplify ourselves, right? To turn our complex personalities into something that's easy to share and easy to predict. Authenticity gets replaced by performance. And here's the kicker. When there's this huge gap between the you you're performing for the world and the you that you actually feel like inside, the source claims the end result is this universal feeling of emptiness, of hollowness.
Another huge piece of this conditioning puzzle is this shift away from information and toward content. Think about that distinction. The source argues that information is there to help you understand something. It answers a question, but content is built for a totally different purpose. It's designed to get a reaction out of you, to trigger an emotion, and just occupy your attention. It's meant to keep you scrolling, keep you engaged in a loop that never actually gives you a clear answer.
So that brings us to our third section. Winning the narrative war. Because if you have this giant conditioning machine, what powers it? What are the tools used to make it all work? Well, according to the source, we're basically living in a kind of narrative war. And it's being fought with two main weapons, fear and story.
And here's the simple, maybe even brutal truth of the attention economy. According to this theory, fear scales engagement better than any other emotion. Period. Sure, other emotions can get you to click or share, but nothing works as fast or as powerfully as fear.
So why is it so effective? The source says fear is basically the perfect tool for engagement for 3 reasons. First, it makes us react instantly, without thinking. Second, it just obliterates nuance. Everything becomes black and white. And third, it makes us want to share it, to spread the warning. It's the perfect recipe for going viral. In a system like this, an emotionally fired-up user is a very, very valuable user.
So how are these narratives weaponized? If fear is the fuel, then narrative, that's the engine driving the whole thing. The argument here is that a lot of modern media isn't just reporting on what happens anymore. It's actively building a story, a frame around those events. And this table really breaks down that shift. The old way, according to the source, was about understanding. The goal was to give you facts and nuance so you could form your own opinion. The new way, it's all about getting a reaction. And you don't do that with facts. You do that with simple stories, with clear heroes and villains. So the end result isn't an informed public. It's a segmented audience, split into predictable groups that are just primed to react.
And this is where the theory makes one of its most controversial points. It claims that the whole left versus right political divide isn't a natural state of things. It's actually a super useful tool for segmenting the audience. It creates two totally separate, predictable emotional markets. And you can sell things to them, you can make them angry, you can get them to mobilize, all on command. And all the while, the argument goes, the real structures of power never even get looked at.
All right, so if all this narrative warfare is going on, where does that leave our actual systems of government? What's the point of politics in a world like this? Well, that brings us to the last part of this whole theory, and maybe the most important, the theater of power, and how we might actually break the simulation.
And this quote really sums up the final piece of the puzzle. The idea is that once a population can be managed and directed through stories and fear, well then politics doesn't really need to solve problems anymore. Its new job, its only job, is to put on a show.
And if you think about it like a stage play, all the pieces are there. You've got actors playing their roles. You've got costumes. There are these predictable story arcs of conflict. You see all this performative outrage, these symbolic gestures. You have these big hearings that accomplish nothing, and these big speeches that change nothing. It's just a constant stream of drama, all designed to keep our attention focused over here, while the real status quo just chugs along, business as usual. You know that feeling when another huge scandal breaks and you just feel nothing? That sense of course this happened, what else is new? Well, the source argues that's not you being apathetic or cynical. That feeling of numbness is actually the goal. It's the intended result of all this conditioning. It's just the background noise of the show, a show you've been trained to watch, but not to interrupt.
So what's the escape hatch? How do you get out? According to this theory, the answer is surprisingly simple. It's not about fighting the system or raging against the machine. The antidote is just awareness. That's it. The claim is that as soon as you can actually see the machinery, once you recognize the performance for what it is, the manipulation just stops working on you. You're no longer the puppet reacting on cue.
So there you have it. The simulation isn't something you defeat in a battle, it's just something you decide to see. The idea is, once you see the strings, the show kind of loses its magic. But that does leave us with one massive lingering question, doesn't it? If becoming aware of the system is the first step to getting out, what in the world is the second?